Welcome into the Ravens Rundown. I am your host, Joey Peterson. On today's show, I'm going to give you 4 Ravens players that you need to keep an eye on that might not make the final 53-man roster now that we've all wrapped up with minicamp and are about to head to training camp. A little bit of a disclaimer, it's not a prediction video, just 4 guys you need to keep a lookout for. I want you to drop some names for me, though, in the comment section down below. I'm about to give you 4. You name a player that you believe the Ravens should cut. Let's start with our first surprise cut candidate is one Mr. David Ojabo, a guy we've talked a lot about over this offseason, and a guy we've talked a lot about when coming to a trade, but we haven't talked cut that deeply. So let's do it today. Cutting him would save $1.78 million in 2025, and that's a number that's really intriguing to me. Like, getting almost $2 million for cutting a David Ojabo, sign me up. And I can already hear you on the other side of your screen. Whether you're watching on the phone, the TV, the computer, it doesn't matter. You're saying, but Joey, wait. He's part of the International Pathway Program. You get 91 roster spots because of David Ojabo because he doesn't count against the 90-man roster. You know what I got to say to that? Who cares? Who cares? I'd rather save almost $2 million than keep a guy on a roster and on the books just so that we can have an extra player, that 91st player, who, let's be frank, is not going to make the 53-man roster anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. I get it. You get one extra roster spot on the 90-man, but, like, is that 91st guy going to make roster cut down day in late August? I don't think so. And I don't hate David Ojabo. I know a lot of you people might think that I do because I've talked about trading him. Now I'm talking about cutting him. I just think it's time to move on. And you know why? He hasn't shown me any reason to not be ready to move on. If you look over the last 3 years, he's barely played because of injury. And I get that in 2022, like, you took a massive risk in drafting a guy who just tore his Achilles. I get that part of it. But still, 5 games played in 2022 and 2023 combined. 4 total sacks in 18 games played across 3 seasons. 18 total pressures in 3 seasons. He doesn't produce. And $2 million, that's not a flash in the pan. Like, that's a pretty substantial amount of money, especially for a team who, they're not broke, but they're not swimming in cash right now. And also, I think, like, just do it. He's not going to make the 53-man roster. This is my projection for the edge rushing group. I think you take, obviously, Odafe Oweh, Kyle Van Noy, Mike Green, Adisa Isaac, and I think Tavius Robinson gets that 5th spot. I think they're going to take 5 guys on the edge, exact same thing they did last year, and I don't think David Ojabo is going to be one of them. You tell me down below, name a player you think that the Ravens should cut. I gave you 1. I got 3 more for you. It's your turn to do it in the comment section down below. Our second guy, let's talk about Jake Hummel, okay? A lot of you guys, I don't know how in-depth you've been keeping up with Baltimore over the offseason. You might not have even known that Jake Hummel was on this roster. And yet, if you cut him, you'd save $1.1 million in cap savings in 2025. That sounds good to me for a guy who pretty much only excels on special teams. And I can hear you on this one as well. On the other side of wherever you're watching. You're saying, but Joey, you just signed him in free agency. They're not going to cut him. You shouldn't cut him. You just signed him back in March, like 2 days after free agency started. I believe it was March 13th, if I remember correctly. I get that. I know that. But just because you were signed in free agency doesn't mean that that guarantees you a roster spot. I think that's silly thinking. I think you sign guys that think could help you, and if they get beat out in practices, if they get beat out in minicamp, beat out in training camp, then they got beat out. And this has happened before. You got to think back a while ago, but it still happened since John Harbaugh has been the leader of this team. In the last 11 years, it's happened twice. Griff Whalen signed July, cut September 2017. Fitzgerald Toussaint signed in May, cut in August of 2014. Signed that year, cut that year. It's happened before, and I would not be surprised if it happened again to Jake Hummel. Now, part of this is because a guy like Chandler Martin, who was an undrafted free agent, he's low-key been balling during OTAs and minicamp. Ryan Mink said this about the undrafted free agent out of Memphis. Undrafted inside linebacker Chandler Martin nearly came up with a pick for the second time during OTAs thus far. Now, I know it says nearly came up with it, but the fact that he's putting himself in position to make plays, I think is a massive positive. And you look at the linebacker depth chart, nobody's touching Trenton or Roquan. Nobody's touching Teddy Buchanan, okay? You spent a fourth-round draft pick on him. I think that last spot, it's going to be a massive competition between Hummel, Martin, Kwenku, okay? And right now, I think with the age and the athletic upside, I think Chandler Martin wins that battle. And I think they only take 4, okay? I think you got too crowded of a defensive back room, both with the safeties and with the cornerbacks. I think you only take 4 inside linebackers. It's the exact same amount they took on roster cutdown day last year. And I think that, I think Jake Hummel just might be one of the guys who doesn't make that roster, okay? And so it's a bummer, and I know that you might be disagreeing or frustrated about it, but that's just kind of how it goes. Up next, we got Jalyn Armour-Davis, a guy who could be a surprise cut candidate, a cut before, roster cut down day. You'd save $1.1 million in cutting JAD, so the exact same amount that you would save if you cut Jake Hummel. And I will give you this. Of all of these names I've listed before, the 2, and of the one I'm about to list last, this is the least likely of the 4 to happen. I think Jalyn Armour-Davis, of the 4 guys I'm about to name, is the most likely to make the 53-man roster, I should say. And he's making himself useful. That's basically the main reason why. Zach Orr confirmed that the Ravens are giving cornerback Jalyn Armour-Davis a look at safety. Just part of trying to have as many versatile guys as possible in the secondary, or said that Armour-Davis might be the smartest guy in the defensive back room. He sees there's a need at safety. Zach Orr thinks about possibly filling that with Jalyn Armour-Davis. Now, one of the reasons I think he might get cut, it's like I mentioned when talking about Jake Hummel, it's a really crowded room. You got a lot of really talented players. You've got Nate, Jair, Marlon, TJ Tampa, Chidobe Awuzie, and then you have Kone, who you just drafted, Longerbeam. You got Lowry, Robinson, and then, of course, you have Jalyn Armour-Davis as well. And then you look at the safety room, and I think if he's going to make it, this is the room that he makes it in. Because Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton, obviously no Darius Washington because of the torn Achilles, and then Bo Bray and Snoozy Can. I think those are 4 locks. Outside of that, there could be a room and a chance for him on this roster. That's why I think if he moves to safety, he stays. If he doesn't move to safety, and they don't believe that that would be beneficial for the team for him to move to safety, then I think he ends up getting cut. What do you guys think? Predict it for me. Where will he play in 2025? Safety or cornerback? If you think it's a safety, go ahead, type S in the comment section down below. And if you think it's cornerback, go ahead and type CB. The last guy we're going to talk about is a wide receiver, a guy who you signed in the offseason last year, and that is one Anthony Miller. He played in a decent bit of games last season. He's one of those guys that every single time he caught a pass, you kind of looked at the screen, squinted your eye, and said, "Who?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot Anthony Miller played on this team." You'd save $1.03 million in 2025 in cap savings if you end up cutting him. He's not going to make this roster. Let's just be real. He's not going to make the 53-man. I think this team has a lot of really talented wide receivers. I feel really, really good about this wide receiver group, both in the starters, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and, of course, DeAndre Hopkins. And I feel really, really good about all the depth pieces. Like, you look at who these guys got behind them. When you look at the depth chart, LeJonte Wester, he's a rookie out of Colorado that has a lot of really high hopes. Tylan Wallace, they re-signed in free agency. Devontae Walker supposedly has been balling during minicamp. And then you get to Anthony Miller, right? And that's passing over Dayton Wade, a guy who threatened to make the roster last year. I wouldn't mind him on the practice squad at all. I don't mind him at all if there's an injury or two and he's a guy that has to get called up for a game. He can make plays when you need him and if you need him to make plays, because he kind of showed that so far during OTAs and during minicamp. Anthony Miller connected a couple of times, Leary and Miller. Miller had a nice diving catch for a 35-yard gain. He's able to make plays, so that's why I think, if you don't put him on the roster, keep him on the practice squad, and elevate him only if you need him. In my opinion, that's kind of like the perfect solution to Anthony Miller on this roster. Make sure you guys got me on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me at Joey Peterson8 on both of those platforms. I tweet daily about the Ravens, Instagram, more family, dog. Follow either. Make sure you're followed here, okay? Way you do it, hit that big red subscribe button. We give you daily content on your favorite team. You're not going to regret it. I promise you that. Lock us in today by subscribing right now.